Decision 2023. Now, election night in Wisconsin, polls closing just 2 hours ago. Now, you can see the primary results for some of those races scrolling at the bottom of your screen. One statewide race on the ballot, though, is a seat on the state Supreme Court. Now, it is a nonpartisan race. The two top vote getters moving on to the April general election. Liberal-leaning Judge Janet Protasiewicz was outpacing them all, and right now it is still, as we just got into the newsroom, that Jennifer Dorow has conceded. So that means that this race will come down to the two you see there in the first, Janet Protasiewicz along with Dan Kelly. Let's get some more information from the big screen, Charles.
Yeah, in fact, here are the numbers. The Associated Press, AP, just calling this race minutes ago, and you can see Milwaukee County Circuit Judge Janet Protasiewicz on top there with the most votes. She has really dominated throughout the state here in purple. The counties you see winning there in purple. But it is former Justice Daniel Kelly also coming in second. So the two top vote getters move on. As you can see, Jennifer Dorow, the Waukesha County judge who entered this race late, coming in at 22%, carrying only 3 counties in our area. So just under 1 million votes. But for now, it is that she will, Judge Janet Protasiewicz and former Justice Daniel Kelly will be on the ballot in April. Shannon?
All right, now Judge Dorow just gave her concession speech a minute ago. Let's go live to Bruce Harrison, who was there at the campaign.
Hey, Charles, Shannon, good evening. Well, where I'm at right now in Waukesha County, some disappointment here among the supporters of Judge Jennifer Dorow. During her concession speech, she thanked her family and friends for the run she's made up to this point. She said, "We came up just a little bit short," but she said she's thankful that she has the chance now to support another conservative in the race, former Supreme State Court Justice Dan Kelly.
We came up a little short. I'm disappointed, but I'm really happy that I will get to support a conservative candidate going forward.
And Dorow would go on in that speech to criticize the big winner tonight, at least according to the vote numbers, Judge Janet Protasiewicz, saying she doesn't support the conservative values that Wisconsinites need. Again, she said, let's all get behind Kelly as we move forward. Now, obviously, as you can see, the party's still going on here, but a loss for Judge Jennifer Dorow, who we all came to know quite well through her work on the bench in the trial of Darrell Brooks in Waukesha County last November. I'll throw it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Bruce, thank you. Miriam McCarr is at the Protasiewicz campaign, where she learned very early in the night that she would be one of the top two. It is still going on as we speak, Miriam?
Yeah, that's right, Shannon. As you can imagine, the energy is very high here at Judge Protasiewicz's watch party. She, of course, was the first candidate this evening to advance to the April elections, with getting 46% of the state's vote at last check. And there were other prominent judicial and political leaders, like current Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice Rebecca Frank DeLay, Senator LaTanya Johnson, as well as former Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes. They were all here tonight supporting her potential spot as the state's next Supreme Court justice. During her statement to the crowd, Protasiewicz brought up what she called the high stakes on the line should any one of her opponents, now Dan Kelly, if he gets elected in April, stressing there's a lot more work to do starting now.
We only have 6 weeks. I'm not taking a day off. I'm not taking a minute off. I'm going to ask all of you to do the same thing. We can celebrate tonight, right? But after that, we are full speed ahead for 42 days.
The judge says that tonight's results show that the state is looking for change, and that change she's hoping to bring in April. Back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Marion, thanks. Let's get some perspective tonight from our political panel. On the Democratic side, former candidate for U.S. Senate Stephen Olakar, and a Republican strategist in our newsroom right now, former communications director for Senator Ron Johnson. We have Ben Vogel. Ben, let me start there with you. Did the Republicans, conservatives get the candidates they want in this? And what will former Justice Kelly have to do to win this? He lost this race in 2020.
Yeah, I think it's a great night for Dan Kelly. Obviously, he's worked very hard, really over the last couple of years, getting around the state, talking to activists, talking to supporters, from every corner of the state. And I think that really comes through. I think what people are going to want in the next state Supreme Court justice is somebody that's going to apply the law evenly, not have their thumb on the scale, as Judge Protasiewicz has already told people she's going to do. Wisconsin voters want somebody that's going to be fair, that's going to look at the case on its merits and decide it appropriately. And that's the kind of justice that Dan Kelly has a record of being.
Stephen Olakar, I guess no surprise here with Judge Protasiewicz. She is the liberal-leaning candidate here. What will she need to do in the next 6 weeks to try to win this? And she's been very vocal on where she stands on certain key issues like abortion.
We have made these Supreme Court races much too political and partisan, and actually that has been part of Judge Janet's message. She wants to bring nonpartisanship back to the Supreme Court, and there are two issues in particular that she's been highlighting that I think reflect the broad values of Wisconsinites. For example, 72% of Wisconsinites do not want rigged gerrymandered maps. They want fair maps and a nonpartisan process of redistricting. And so when we see democracy on the ballot last fall, which was crucial to Tony Evers's win, and now again on the ballot here in the Supreme Court primary, these are the types of issues that Wisconsinites are looking for, to see that we have a sense of balance and common sense in the Supreme Court, so we don't go in an extreme direction where, for example, next fall in 2024, you see electors going in a different direction than the Wisconsin voters in 2024.
I want to give each of you equal time here. So, Ben, when you look at this, these issues, they're going to come up before the court. How will former Justice Kelly handle these issues as he's campaigning to try to get the job?
Well, again, he's going to have plenty of time to talk to voters about his judicial philosophy, how he wants to be somebody that applies the law, not serve as a super legislator on the bench like, the politician Protasiewicz will. She's funded heavily from out-of-state interests, and she's already said, like I mentioned before, she's going to put her thumb on the scale and rule how she wants to politically, not necessarily based on the law in every instance. And that's a huge problem. That's an issue that I'm sure the Kelly campaign is going to address going forward and really make her answer for.
All right, Stephen, just you'll have the final word here, a few seconds. What will the price tag look on this race come April?
It's going to set records not only for the state, but even for the nation as a whole. And I think that's a problem. I think that there's way too much money in these races, and they become these kind of political hot points. And I think that we need a clean elections law, frankly, for these types of races, so we end the legalized bribery that goes on. So it's way too expensive. And I think that what Wisconsinites are looking for is a nonpartisan race for Supreme Court.
It is supposed to be nonpartisan, but Stephen Olakar and Ben Voko, we appreciate you both being here tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Charles.
Another race we're following is the Republican primary for the state Senate seat in District 8. That area includes Mequon and Menominee Falls. The seat came open in November with the retirement of longtime Republican incumbent Alberta Darling. State Representative Dan Kelly will advance to the general election, defeating fellow Republican Janelle Branchant, who was endorsed by President Donald Trump, and Van Mobley. The Democratic candidate is running unopposed. Now, more results are scrolling at the bottom of your screen. To get a closer look at the full list, you can go to tmj4.com/decision2023. We will be right back after this.